Welcome back to the King of Games 98. On today's episode, we have Metal Gear Solid versus Banjo-Kazooie.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's special Battle of 1998 bonus episode of the Region Free Gamers podcast. My name's Paul Romalo, and I'll be your host for today's show. With me today are podcasting Iron Man out of Rhode Island, Arnaldo Perez.
I'm so scared, Paul.
Why?
Because of what we're talking about today. I'm just afraid.
Okay, I thought you were afraid because, like, I was too exuberant or something. I don't know.
You do seem very happy to be here, which makes me uncomfortable.
Oh, no. This is gonna be a great episode. Because also joining us out of the UK, otherwise known as Video Game Bear on Instagram, Ryan Medlock.
Hello.
Ryan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yay.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to be here. It's very kind of you.
You've got your work cut out for you today, buddy, because you'll be stumping for N64 classic Banjo-Kazooie as it goes up against Metal Gear Solid.
Well, I think we all know the answer to that, of the best game ever, Banjo-Kazooie. Podcast over.
Thanks, everyone.
Down, people.
A couple things, though, before we get going on the episode. Everyone, if you enjoy the show, tell a friend. And don't forget to leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcasts app. If you left one already, thanks. Really appreciate it. And if you haven't, again, we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And so just to give everyone a heads up about how we go about selecting a winner between Banjo and Metal Gear, we look at 5 different criteria. The first one's critical reception. The second one is how did the game define its genre. The third one is personal attachment, so how attached we are to these games. The fourth one is the legacy that the game left. And the fifth criteria is having the two games go head-to-head. Which one would we rather play? Now, at the end of the day, it's possible that at the end we've gone through these criteria and one game clearly comes out on top via the criteria, and then we still pick the other one. Because, this isn't scientific. We're just, picking games.
We're just talking about video games.
Exactly.
Sounds good to me.
So, before we get started on that, though, Ryan, this is the first time you've joined us. So,
it is indeed.
Yeah. So, again, I'm super hyped. It's nice to have someone who's a Banjo-Kazooie fan coming on here to stump for it. So, Ryan, I guess the listeners and ourselves, too, really should get to know you a little bit. Whereabouts do you live?
I live in Camberley, which is in Surrey. I guess it's sort of near London, I guess.
Wow.
I live in a fancy apartment with lots of video games here, including Banjo-Kazooie.
That's remarkable. My sister lives in Sutton.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
I know where that is. Yeah.
Yeah. She's like right nearby.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I'll pop in and say hi sometime then. Probably won't know who I am, but still.
Well, she doesn't like video games, so, it'll be a pointless visit.
Is that why you exiled her from Canada? She doesn't like video games?
No, she was all too keen to leave Canada all on her own. She was whisked away by a dashing British gentleman.
Ah, I see.
No, don't blame her.
Yeah. Me neither. And so how did you get started? How did you get started in the hobby? Like what era did you get started playing games in?
I think my first ever video game was Fantasy World Dizzy on the Commodore 64.
Wow.
Pretty popular game over in the UK. Like Dizzy was sort of a gaming icon here. Simple little character, just an egg with boxing gloves, and he walks around solving puzzles. For some reason, that was like a massive hit over here in the UK. Tons of merchandise for all that over here, which I had a couple of. I think apart from that, I then went to a Sega Master System, then a NES, then a SNES. After that was a Sega Saturn, I think, and then an N64. Then Fanboy Tears, and then I finally bought a PS2. And here we are today.
And, I don't think any of us had a choice during that era. Like, I mean, I had a Dreamcast, and I mean, I enjoyed it. Although during that era, I was more into PC gaming, and my Dreamcast, didn't really get too much play. But I think we all just kind of had to break down and get a PlayStation 2, didn't we?
I guess so. It was like the in thing to buy at the time.
Yeah. What would you say your favorite game ever is?
Oh, that's tricky. I'm going to go with Chrono Trigger still.
Still, eh?
Yeah, that's the best game ever.
Unpopular opinion.
Nobody's ever heard of it, obviously. Very obscure niche game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nah, man, you're in good company. A lot of people would list Chrono Trigger as their number one. I mean, I wouldn't personally, but that doesn't mean I don't like it. I think it's great.
Who's your favorite Chrono Trigger party member?
Oh, I got to go with Frog.
Yes.
Everybody loves Frog.
Dude, because he's
just
Frog.
so cool.
Yeah.
He is. I mean, he's awesome. But also, Magus is pretty cool. You know?
Yeah, he's alright.
He's the bad boy. He hurts inside, guys.
Yeah, but when you get him onto your party, he's like really lame. Like, you remember that really epic boss fight you had against him. Then when he becomes a playable character, you're like, doesn't do any of that magic he was doing before.
Yes.
It frustrated me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. That drives me crazy in RPGs, because that's not the only time where and it goes both ways. Like, I've had situations where I'm betrayed by a party member, and then they become a boss, and then suddenly they're doing all this shit that they weren't doing before, and I'm like, what is this?
That's very true.
Yeah. Ryan, I gotta ask you, so on Instagram, you post very thorough pictures and I guess almost reviews, really, of games, where you have a picture of the box, you have the picture of the box's contents, you have gameplay videos to go along with it, and personally, I've enjoyed following just because I see stuff that I didn't know before.
Okay.
My wallet hates you, but whatever. And then you have your artwork where you draw your eponymous video game bear.
That's right. Yeah.
There's various comics. He's usually playing a Sega console, and and in some kind of amusing situation or other. So now I didn't do the math until this past week, where we were getting ready for this episode. Is the video game bear loosely related to Banjo?
I haven't actually thought of that.
Then the answer is no, it's not.
No, I guess Banjo-Kazooie was a huge part of my childhood, because that was a pretty big game for me. But maybe it's like subconsciously inspiration.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But in any case, I encourage any of our listeners who are on Instagram, they gotta check your account out. Again, it's Video Game Bear, and
please do.
Yeah. The game reviews are great. The comics are great. I'm really glad that you've been able to join us today, because I've been following you for so long.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So here's the next question then, as we get on to MGS and Banjo. Ryan, what was your first experience with Banjo?
Gosh, you mean first experience playing it, or
first experience playing it, or even seeing it?
I've been following like Banjo-Kazooie quite religiously. Like, just watching all the, reading the magazine previews and things like that.
Yeah.
I was pretty hyped seeing Banjo in Diddy Kong Racing, like the year before Banjo released.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just having Banjo as a playable character, that just seemed amazing to me. Gosh, my first time playing it, though, that was quite an incredible experience. Like, it was basically hyped up to be the next Mario 64. I think it kind of was, in my opinion, at the time. I'm not sure if it still holds that title. But, I just really love 3D platformers.
So I've been playing it recently. I hadn't actually ever touched Banjo-Kazooie. When it came out, I think I was 19 or somewhere around that age. And so I was kind of like aggressively growing out of that kind of style, right? Like the cutesy, cartoony, whatever, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so for the longest time now, I've been not disdainful of Banjo-Kazooie, but it just kind of like, whatever, right? And I finally played it for the first time this week, and it is incredibly charming.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing about it, just the charm and the silly, goofy nature of it all.
It really, it's actually kind of remarkable, and I regret a little bit not playing it sooner. Basically, I was just kind of smiling immediately, is what it is. And for real though, right? Like that, it starts off with that ridiculous intro where, where Banjo's obviously playing the banjo, and Kazooie comes out with the kazoo and so on. And it's just, it's really irreverent and funny. Arnie, have you played it?
So Banjo-Kazooie was one of the big games I remember from the N64 era that I played when I was growing up. I never owned it. A cousin of mine owned it, but whenever I remember the first time I went over to their house to sleep over, and I had never played it before, and they were like, "Oh, you got to play it. You'll love it." And then I started playing it, and I was absorbed by it. So every time I would go over, I was just like, "Where's Banjo-Kazooie? I need to play some more of it." And I don't think I ever got really far in it. But even just playing like Mumbo's Mountain and, some of the earlier levels was always so enjoyable to me. Like, even if I had done the stuff before, like you said, Paul, it's just so charming that it really like sucks you into that, to its world.
Just felt very bright and colorful as well at the time, which felt a bit unusual for an N64 game.
It was really appealing, like very eye-catching.
Yeah, which I guess you wouldn't really expect that from an N64 game, I thought, since they're always a little bit murky and, I guess, muddy sort of textures, those sort of fog in the distance, I guess.
Hazy is always the word that I use to describe any N64 game, really. It's always hazy. But no, Banjo's super colorful. Like, to your point, Ryan, earlier about whether it's the new or, like, personally, I mean, first of all, I think it's better than Mario 64 straight up. Right?
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's any question. Because it's basically, in my opinion, it's Mario 64, but with way more charm. I don't know. Am I off base here?
Yeah, that's true. Because I do remember thinking that at the time. Because I guess Mario 64 looks very primitive in comparison. Like, very simple polygonal enemies, like 2D sprites for trees and things like that. Whereas Banjo-Kazooie has like fully animated characters.
Yeah. I mean, we can give Mario 64 all the credit it deserves for being, quote unquote, the first.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really the first, but it's the first to kind of do it right. And, obviously that carries some weight. But I mean, if I had to pick a game out of those two to play today, it would be Banjo. There's no question.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can see the inspirations. Like, there's no doubt that Banjo took from Mario 64, but I think Banjo took those elements and sort of refined them and improved on them in ways that just makes it a more enjoyable experience nowadays, even, I think.
Like, I guess Rare did that a lot during the N64 era. Like, Diddy Kong Racing is still what's Mario Kart 64.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
a better kart racer.
Yeah. I'd agree with that, actually. At least
And
think
you
of
guys,
that mode.
So Ryan, let me ask you, like, were you a fan of Rare partly because they're a UK-based outfit? Like, because I remember looking at sales charts recently and doing research for this episode, and like the UK sales charts, it's Rare all over the place.
I do remember Banjo-Kazooie being super popular over here. I guess it is kind of a big deal when an N64 game got super popular over here, because it's not quite as popular as the PlayStation. Although I guess it's the same like that over there. I don't know. Like, I was a fan of Rare just purely because of Donkey Kong Country. Because I recognised the big logo up right at the start of this game. So I was just looking forward to it purely because of that.
Yeah, like, I don't remember... I personally don't remember as a kid, like, following Canadian developers, you know, even though they were out there and I knew about them. I wasn't cheering for them per se. So I was just wondering if, Rare, if they had some kind of like extra boost from the UK, from the consumers there.
It's possible, because I do remember thinking it would be like a really cool dream just to work in Rare, because they're wouldn't say they're super close to me, but they're like in the same country. It felt a little bit more possible.
Yeah.
So maybe there was a little bit of that.
I think part of it too is, and this isn't to rag on the N64 at all, because I genuinely like that console. I liked it growing up, and I despite the problems I have with it today, I still think it's a pretty good console. Yeah. But if you're looking at the N64 library, especially as a kid, like if you're not buying first party Nintendo games, Rare is sort of the second tier to that, right?
Yeah.
And this is Rare at the height of their powers. Like, you're talking Diddy Kong Racing, you're talking GoldenEye, you're talking Perfect Dark, and you're talking Banjo-Kazooie. So, at least to me, like, that was a seal of quality in and of itself. Like, if I knew, oh, these are the same guys that did GoldenEye, like, I like GoldenEye, I had a ton of fun with GoldenEye, like, let's go check this out. They've sort of proven themselves at this point time and time again. Now, when did you first play Metal Gear, Ryan?
I'm pretty sure I played it near the European release. I'm not quite sure when that was. It was never a game I owned, but I played it at my cousin's house. I remember liking it. It was one of those games that was trying to be realistic, from what I recall. Like, I don't know, it reminds me of that sort of era of Shenmue, where games were just trying to strive for realism and tell a sort of serious storyline. And
Arnie, you were more recent?
So I think I've talked about this before, but my first experience with Metal Gear was it was like Ryan's. Like, I never owned it growing up, but I had a friend who had it. And so the first time I saw it was a friend playing it. And I remember watching them do, like, all the cool stuff that I was like, oh, you can do that? Like, knocking on walls to distract guards, like, being able to... I can't remember in MGS1 if you can take bodies and put them in other places, like when you knock a guard out or strangle them or something. But there were just, like, a bunch of little touches, like when guards see your footprints in the snow and they're like, oh, what's, and they follow it and stuff. Like, all those little touches, I remember thinking, like, oh, this is really cool. But I never got to put my hands on it until much later. And then I recently played it for this episode, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Are you sure you don't want to talk about it now?
Sure. I've been really, I did want to talk about it, but I also didn't want to take up like 10 minutes of this podcast, but I've been really stressed about this since you guys invited Ryan to guest on this, because originally I think it was going to be the three of us. And I thought, this is going to be really easy because I'm going to be the Banjo-Kazooie guy. Like, I feel like you and Ozzy have a connection to Metal Gear. And I was just like, I'm just going to be able to talk all I want about Banjo-Kazooie. They're going to vote for Metal Gear. It's not going to be a hard decision for me. I could do whatever I want, and nobody cares. And then you were like, oh, no, let's invite Ryan on. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I've never talked to Ryan. I'd love to have him on the podcast. And it's like, oh, he loves Banjo-Kazooie. And I'm like, well, fuck me. Now I have to make decisions and be responsible and, put actual thought and effort into this show, which is not something that I'm used to doing. And so I decided to play Metal Gear Solid because I've played Banjo-Kazooie a ton. And so I finally sat down and I played it, and I just suck at stealth games, Paul. Like, I played it on easy. I died like 4 times to the first guard. I'm not a super cool spy, man. I can't. It's not something that I'm good at. But I will say, and I think we'll touch more on this as we keep going. Despite the fact that I was getting frustrated with it, the longer I played, the more compelled I was to keep playing it, even though I was not good at it. There's something about that game that just makes you want to, like, see what else happens and sort of continue exploring and figuring stuff out.
That's a very good way to put it. And I mean, it's really, to me anyway, it comes down to the story, right? Yeah. Like, that game in and of itself, it's a good game. It's solid. The action's solid. All that stuff is good. But then you have that storyline on top of it. And I mean, nowadays, I guess it wouldn't be remarkable, although it would still be good. Maybe even a little bit campy, I guess. But back then, are you kidding me? Man, I was blown away. Absolutely blown away.
I remember reading a quote as I was reading for both of these games. So I remember reading a quote about Metal Gear Solid where somebody had said something to the effect of, it's just as much a movie as it is a game. And I really like that quote because Metal Gear Solid is really one of those games that I feel like I would get as much enjoyment out of watching somebody else play it and go through the story as I would in playing it myself, personally. And I think that is partially due to the fact that I'm just not very good at it. So I think it looks a lot cooler when somebody who knows what they're doing is you know, being good at the game and being Snake-like.
Yes, yes.
But it speaks more to the fact that I think because Metal Gear has such an interesting storyline, it really engages with everybody who's watching it. Like you sort of experience it even as somebody who's not playing the game. You're still invested in what's going on, and you want your friend to like make it to the next level and sort of keep, you know, fleshing out the story. Whereas Banjo-Kazooie, obviously, the story is not its strong suit. It's really the mechanics and the gameplay and the exploring the different levels and collecting all the stuff that's the appeal of that one. So Banjo-Kazooie is like, I want the controller in my hands. Metal Gear Solid is more, if I have the controller in my hands, that's cool. But if you have the controller in your hands, I'm still enjoying myself watching you play.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is Metal Gear is a game for everyone, and Banjo is just a game for the person playing it, and is actually exclusionary. That's what I'm hearing. Just saying.
I don't believe that's what I meant to say, but it's open to interpretation.
I think that was the strongest thing about Metal Gear Solid, though. It just felt like a cinematic experience.
Yeah.
Like, I hadn't really seen that before in a game. Like, I'm sure there were games before then that had, you know, heavy focus on the story. But for me, that was like the first experience of playing a game where it felt like you were playing a movie, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, between the voice acting and the camera direction, and you know, it was very cinematic.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing you can definitely say about Metal Gear Solid, whether you played it when it came out or you played it now, it's a game that is very evidently pushing the envelope. You know, it's a game that's trying new things, that's not afraid to experiment, that's not afraid to sort of go out there and try something that's never been done before. And with Banjo-Kazooie, like we've talked about before, you see sort of the inspirations in other games that it's sort of taken and improved upon and sort of brought to, you know, the best that it was at the time.
Yeah,
that's true. Okay,
Ryan sounds like he's grudgingly agreeing with you.
I guess Banjo-Kazooie just is basically a better Mario 64 at the end of the day. Like,
it is, but there's nothing wrong with being better than fine. One of the best games of all time. I guess.
And again, I was like, I don't want to use the word shocked, but I was actually shocked at how much I enjoyed it. Not as a game per se, because the game, you know, those kind of platformers, you know, it's not my thing. It never has been, right? I haven't played platformers since like the 16-bit era. I mean, I'll play them from time to time, but you know, it's not really kind of my go-to. And so with that said, you know, I was shocked at how much I actually liked Banjo-Kazooie. Not because the game is compelling from a gameplay standpoint for me, but because of the style and the color and the humor and even just the way the characters talk to each other, where they don't have actual voice lines, but they do that weird mumbly thing. You know, like the mumbly thing is hilarious.
You like it when Banjo goes,
yeah, like it's little things, and it's like, and I don't know what the special sauce is that makes it appealing to adults and kids, because there are games that, you know, they're designed with kids in mind, right? And you play them as an adult and you're like, oh boy, like, you know, I have zero interest in this. It's way too kiddie. Banjo's not like that. They somehow managed to strike this. I guess this is just rare magic. I don't know, Ryan, like, can you put your finger on it?
I think it's just that, like you said, the charm of it all, really. I guess it's kind of like a Disney film, really. You can, all ages can enjoy that, I guess.
You know, I think part of it might be because I'm an old man now, and
you can sort of look back on it more fondly now.
Well, yeah, that, and I just have more. I'm not aggressively trying to be an adult anymore.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying, right? Like in my early 20s, I can't play Banjo-Kazooie because I care what the nobody else in the room thinks. You know what I'm saying? Whereas now I can just look at Banjo. No, but you know what? It's not even that. Like, honestly, I'll watch a Saturday morning cartoon that's released nowadays, or even going back and watching Transformers. Dude, I have no idea what the fuck is going on in Transformers. Like, have you guys watched an episode of that show recently?
I did watch it recently, actually. It's just, like, complete nonsense. It's hilarious.
I have no idea. They use all these terms and all these, and it's like, what is going on here? But again, Banjo is not like that. Banjo actually is, appealing to adult me and kid me. And maybe because there's no Energon in Banjo, maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. Anyhow, on that note, let's take a little bit of a break here. I think we've kind of introduced ourselves and what we think of these games as a general rule. But when we come back, we're going to go into our 5 criteria, and we're going to have to do the sad work of eliminating one of these great games. Okay, and we're back. So now we're going to go over our 5 criteria to determine who the winner is, and equally important, who the loser is, between Banjo and Metal Gear. So the first thing we're going to look at here is critical reception. We're just going to look at how each of these games was reviewed and what do their sales numbers look like. This is pretty black and white, guys. We had a look at Metacritic pretty much, right, Arnie? Yeah. And the average is very close. Banjo, average of 92. Metal Gear Solid, average of 94. Sales numbers, the sales numbers are a funny thing, because I don't remember off the top of my head just how much the PlayStation outsold the N64 during that time. Like, what do you guys, if you were to guess, what is it, like 2-1 or something?
Yeah, it was at least 2-1, I'd say.
Yeah.
Probably a little more than that, but being conservative.
Well, anyway, I mean, it's so hard to tell, like, because there's so many kind of variables, like the install base for the system obviously is a factor when you're looking at sales numbers, how many games there are in the system. When the N64 comes out and the only thing that you have is Mario 64, then you've got 100% attach rate there, right? So it's kind of difficult to tell, how relevant these numbers actually are. But in any case, Banjo-Kazooie sold about 3.6 million. Metal Gear Solid sold about 6 million. And going forward, I mean, as far as the series is concerned, Metal Gear, obviously the better selling series if we're looking at that as well. I obviously will do anything I can to put Metal Gear ahead, including these kind of relatively arbitrary numbers, but, that's just me.
I mean, I think, like you said, the fact that the sales numbers are, I mean, we're talking millions of copies here, but relatively close when you have a console that's a 2-1 selling over the other console. Like, there's that many more PlayStations than N64s, but the numbers don't bear that out. I think maybe works as a point in Banjo's favor, actually.
It could. But I mean, with Banjo's favor, the other thing, though, is that with Metal Gear, with the PlayStation, you were a bit more spoiled for choice.
Yeah, you were.
So your sales, or your purchasing dollar is going to be a little bit more diluted, because, do I buy Final Fantasy VII? Do I buy Resident Evil 2? There's a lot more there. Whereas with the N64, don't get me wrong, there were other great games on the N64. There were just fewer of them. That's really all there is to it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so the N64, you know what? It did all right. It sold, I'm just looking at the numbers now, it sold about 33 million units, which is what, like 20 or 30 times as much as the Wii U?
I remember it being everybody's second favorite console. Like, first it was the PlayStation, and you may or may not just have an N64 in the corner for GoldenEye.
Yes.
That's how I remember it.
Yeah,
most
N64 was the multiplayer machine. Like, if you had N64, it was, are you playing GoldenEye, are you playing Perfect Dark, are you playing Diddy Kong, are you playing Smash Brothers, you know, stuff like that. That's at least what I would usually associate my N64 with.
I 100% associated the N64 with multiplayer games, In my house and among my friends, we also had a Saturn. You know, we had a couple of Saturns floating around, and they had the 6-player adapter, and there were some great 6-player games for it. But not everybody, like, that's way more hardware. Not everybody has access to that. The N64 is still like the de facto kind of multiplayer machine of the era, as far as I'm concerned. Anyhow, so critical reception, we give Metal Gear Solid the nod there. After that, we've got how well the game sort of defines its genre. So, you know, how does the game stack up to other games of its genre? Did it influence further games of its genre? Ryan, what do you think here?
Is it stealth action games that Metal Gear Solid falls under?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a good example of a Metal Gear Solid type thing.
I can give you quite a few.
Yeah. See, platformers are my thing, but Metal Gear Solid, that was just a game.
So would you say like Banjo was kind of like how do you think Banjo influenced other games of that type?
I guess every 3D platformer that came out after it felt like it was trying to imitate Banjo-Kazooie in a weird way. Like, you had your Crash Bandicoots, Spyro the Dragon, Gex. Oh, there were so many. And all of those games desperately wanted to be Banjo-Kazooie. Like, they just wanted to have that style of humor, the fun sort of collectathon gameplay.
See, here's where my opinion differs from yours a little bit. Because I think, like, here's the thing. Banjo in a vacuum, I like it, right? I don't think it had a very positive effect on the genre, though. Because that whole collectathon thing, in my opinion, over the years, it got way out of hand.
That's true, because I think even the sequel was a little bit over the top, just with the collectibles. Banjo-Kazooie just felt a bit more concise.
Yeah, and it felt like...
To Ryan's point, I will say really quickly, to Ryan's point, I think that when you're looking at defining or sort of influencing things, I think mechanically you're right, Paul. I don't think the collectathon genre sort of survived, that much longer. But I think you can also look at separate factors like, sort of the cute, cuddly mascot character designs, the music, like having that sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? That music that sort of flows and fits with your different environments, and is sort of dynamic in a way. I think Banjo was one of the first games that really did that well, and did that, in a way that whenever you were in a new place, you felt like the music sort of matched the mood and the atmosphere of wherever you were. And then level design wise, I think a lot of those later platformers took at least a little bit from Banjo in the way that it was well designed, kind of intricate, but it flowed together very well. Like, the levels in Banjo always feel, at least to me, they always felt a lot bigger than they probably were. And I think that was partially because they were designed very well and in a way that exploring them was very rewarding.
Yes. As far as I know, it's either the first game or one of the first games where it really just kind of tied everything together and you didn't have level 1-1, level 1-2. Right? It was like this big cohesive world that makes a lot of sense. And I could even say that now playing it the other day. Everything just kind of makes sense. It's silly and ridiculous, but it still makes sense, right?
Call me crazy, but I thought Mario Odyssey borrowed a lot of ideas from Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, no, you're not crazy at all. Yeah, no, Mario Odyssey, like having played Banjo-Kazooie now, Mario Odyssey is more, as far as I'm concerned, it's more a Banjo game than it is a Mario game.
Yeah. It definitely scratched the Banjo itch for me.
Yeah.
Which I've been missing a lot. But
yeah, and I think we talked about the collectathon aspect, but another thing that I don't know if maybe I'm going out on a limb here, but the aspect that I also really enjoyed from Banjo that I think carried on in its wake was having a character like Kazooie, like sort of an independent agent that gives you the ability to use different weird powers that, you know, your character might not normally have access to. Because in Mario 64, you did have power-ups in the sense of, like, the little caps you could find, like Metal Mario, Flying Mario, stuff like that. But Kazooie was sort of permanently attached to you, so it wasn't just like you'd get a new power-up and it's a temporary thing. It's like, this is now an integral mechanic to this game that you need to use all the time to find, you know, new items and unlock new puzzles and sort of solve new problems.
Yes, and a hilarious mechanic too.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I'm going to say about the collectathon, I'm sorry I keep coming back to that. Now that I think about it, any activity that ends in the word "a-thon," that's just automatically unappealing. Am I wrong here?
No, because
okay, you guys are struggling, so I'm just going to assume you're agreeing then.
I think it comes to it with everything. It's all about mediation, right? Like, I think Banjo does it in a way that doesn't seem overwhelming or tedious. I think the easy punching bag in that aspect is always Donkey Kong 64. Donkey Kong 64 took the platformer the collectathon aspect way too far. There's way too many things to collect for way too many different characters, and that sense of reward starts waning down the more you have to do it, right? Like, you know, if I go into a Banjo-Kazooie level, I'm like, there's Jinjos, there's Jiggies, and there's notes, unless I'm missing something. And each one of those things gives you different things. Like, you get rewarded in different ways for collecting each of them.
Yes.
So it's always rewarding because I always know exactly what I'm looking for, and there's a manageable number of them to collect. So I'm never going into a level like, oh fuck, like, what do I have to, okay, let me double check my list to make sure that that I know exactly what I'm looking for every single time I'm here. You know, there's none of that sort of stress. You know what you're looking for. You'll probably find it just by exploring the level, which you're already incentivized to do because there's fun little characters that do funny things, and there's interesting puzzles, and, you know, a lot of them are sort of check marked by the launch pads and the pads that tell you, like, oh, you need to use this power in this area. Well, there must be something around there. You know, it never felt like these collectibles were hidden just for the sake of, like, making them annoying to find. Like, oh, you got to find 50, you know, stars, and one of them is just, like, hidden in this corner that we found that, you know, it'll take you, like, forever to find.
Yeah, yeah, and none of the collectibles are there for the sake of the 100% completion. They all have a reason to be there other than, you know, scratching that obsessive compulsive itch. So we've established Banjo here. Metal Gear, I'll say it, Ryan, because I think you might have. I understand that you don't want to stick up for Metal Gear. That's fine.
I'm just struggling to think of a good Metal Gear example. Give me one. Which
is unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable, dude.
I'm sorry.
They're all over the place. Metal Gear basically invented that genre.
That's the problem therein is that Metal Gear defined the genre in the sense that Metal Gear created that niche. So Metal Gear is the genre.
Yeah, and then you have, you know, and to be fair, that's not necessarily a good thing because it gave us games like Siphon Filter, and we've heard me poop on Siphon Filter before on this show. So, you know, you take the genre defining thing as you will, because it might not necessarily be a good thing. There were definitely, on the success of Metal Gear, a lot of stealth games of questionable quality came out afterwards that tried to kind of recapture or capitalize on that magic. And very few of them actually, you know, delivered on the promise. Something like Splinter Cell, I would say, is probably your best example of something that, you know, actually tried and delivered. But I mean, as far as whether it defines the genre or not, that's pretty much Metal Gear's bag. You know, that's what it did.
Even beyond that genre, to say it created anything is hard for me, because I'm always like, I don't want to say that something created something, because somebody's always going to be like, well, actually, there's,
every time,
whatever. But the act of the storytelling, the way that the story is presented to you, the way that it's told, the way that you interact with these characters, like Metal Gear was really the first one that I can remember, at least, that was so cinematic in its presentation, and that tried to tell a story that was so expansive and so complicated, for lack of a better word. And I think, I mean, you can see it. Like, Kojima is a big movie guy, and he really likes doing that sort of stuff. He's been doing it, you know, pretty much since he started making games. And I think with the PlayStation, he finally had the space, and he finally had a machine that could match his ambition and wouldn't let him compromise his vision as much as maybe some of the older stuff he was working with.
Yeah.
But I think any cinematic game that you can think of now, you probably look back at Metal Gear as like, that was the thing that made me realize I can make this now.
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty cut and dry. So, critical reception, genre defining. I think Metal Gear's on top here so far.
Lies.
I'll take the lack of a no as a yes. I'll give
Metal
case.
Gear the genre defining. Yeah.
Personal attachment. So how do we feel about these games personally? I don't know that we have to go into too much detail here. We can just skip this one altogether, quite frankly.
I like Banjo.
Me too.
Metal Gear made me sad because it punished me so much, and Banjo just makes me happy. I like listening to happy music and collecting colorful puzzle pieces. Okay,
so Banjo wins this one. That's 1 point to Banjo.
Metal Gear to me is like when you go to a nice fancy restaurant and you try something that's out of your comfort zone. You're like, oh, everybody says this is great, and maybe I'll like it too. Whereas Banjo is like, man, I really feel like ordering a shitty pizza from Domino's, and I know I'm going to love it, and it's going to make me so happy.
If I can expand on your metaphor there, the restaurant that I went to where I ate Metal Gear, it ended up being like the most delicious meal I've ever had. I'm just saying. And if I had to choose between that restaurant and McDonald's again, I would go back to that restaurant and have the life-changing meal. Just saying.
That was Metal Gear.
All right, so we give that one to Banjo. Legacy. Has this game left a mark on the video game world, or how is the game remembered? Is it remembered?
I think Banjo-Kazooie is remembered well. You see that massive fan reaction to the Banjo-Kazooie trailer in Smash, and people still remember the character.
Yep.
Very positively. I think people do want more cartoony platformers. If you look at the success of Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, recent remasters that were quite popular.
Yeah. I think these things in the video game industry are cyclical, in my opinion. Platformers fell out of favor for a while. Now they're back. They're popular again. People have fond memories of it. The stealth game, the Metal Gear clone, fell out of favor for a while. You know, there were just too many of them. They sucked. And now, you know, there are fewer of them, and the ones that are out there are better. You know, I agree with you, Ryan. Like, the platformer now making a bit of a comeback, and I can see why, you know, and not to get too deep into it, but the world we live in now, like, do I really need to be like, no, for real though, right? Like, do I really need to be following this special ops guy who's disarming nukes? You know?
Yeah, that's true.
I see all this shit on the news already. Like, sometimes I just want to collect Jinjos.
Yeah. Sometimes you just want to mindlessly sit and, you know, have a bear and a bird just flying around for no reason.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're definitely in that kind of era in the world where, you know, something like a Banjo-Kazooie is probably more welcome than it once was. Now, with that said, I don't think we can debate here that Metal Gear is not the game with the better, not the better, but with the greater legacy. I mean, we're talking everything from influence on the genre to the memes to the character of Solid Snake, you know, best-selling sequel after best-selling sequel. I mean, am I missing something here?
I mean, I agree with you that I think overall the legacy of Metal Gear is superior to Banjo's in that Metal Gear continued to go on, continued, you know, its sort of world-destroying story and sales, and was critically acclaimed, Raiden not included.
Yes, yes.
But you know, I think it's hard for me, at least, to separate the legacy of Metal Gear from the legacy of Hideo Kojima.
But they're the same. Because it's the only game he does.
That's what I... Exactly. Like to me, when I think of the influence that Metal Gear's had and the impact of it, it really revolves around this like single auteur who, you know, sort of had a vision for what he wanted to do, went out and did it, and kept doing it for as long as he did. Like, I don't think you see that anymore. It's such a, like, something so focused on a single person. So yeah, I think Metal Gear has a longer legacy, has a more historic legacy, but I think Banjo-Kazooie has its own legacy. Obviously, sadly, it did not continue past the first two games, and then the bigger problem with Banjo's legacy is that the games that came out after that were not mediocre.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. Like, have either of you played Nuts and Bolts?
I have, unfortunately.
A little bit, yeah.
What did you think? Because like I actually didn't know Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts existed until very recently. And, I mean, it looks interesting, but I can see how people would be off-put by the fact that it's not actually Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, it's nothing like a Banjo game, except for, I guess, maybe the style and the character designs.
Yeah. And Banjo's fat now.
Yeah.
He's
got a square nose.
Here's the thing, and I want to get Ryan's opinion on this as the sort of resident Banjo guy. I feel like Nuts and Bolts, if it was not named Banjo-Kazooie, is not a bad game. Like, it's, you know, it's not like world defining or anything. Like, it's not, I wouldn't be like, oh my god, this is one of my favorite games ever. But the fact that it was called Banjo-Kazooie and then people got it and then they were like, what the hell is this? Sort of incited a lot of that backlash.
From the little I played of Nuts and Bolts, if you took away the Banjo-Kazooie name and just played it purely for what it was, I just thought it was okay. Yeah,
like an average kart racer sort of thing. But it's like, think of it this way, Paul. What if I told you, like, oh, here's, like, it's right after Metal Gear Solid, you've played it, you loved it, you're all about it, and I'm like, here's Metal Gear Solid, I don't know,
Dance Dance Revolution.
Yeah, like, here's Metal Gear Solid Kojima or whatever, and you get it, and it's a 3D platformer or something.
Yeah.
How confused would you be?
I'd be confused, although, to be fair, a Metal Gear DDR game, I would play that. I would laugh my ass off. Just saying.
Well, Metal Gear Dynasty Warriors.
I think.
Oh my god.
The Mosu game.
I'll be honest with you. I have no time for any Dynasty Warriors game. None.
Yeah. I think where we sit right now, the legacy of Metal Gear is honestly a lot cleaner and just a lot fuller than Banjo's is. But I don't know. Give Konami 10 good years of making Metal Gear Survive sequels, and maybe we'll be, you know, having a different conversation.
It's too bad we're having that conversation right now, and we're gonna have to move on and say Banjo comes out second place there in our fourth criteria. And number 5, head to head. How do these games compare with each other? Which game would you rather play? Again, we don't have to spend too long on this one.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I get it.
I think it comes down, for me at least, it comes down to what I said before. Like, I think I would have more fun watching somebody else play Metal Gear Solid than I would playing it myself. Whereas Banjo-Kazooie is like, I need to play it. Like, Banjo's gameplay is solid. It works for what it is. It sort of hits all the right notes for me. So I would definitely, like, given the choice between the two, I'd sit down and play Banjo.
Yeah,
Ryan, I'm assuming you're the same, yes?
I'm playing it right now, so yeah.
For our listeners, when we first got Ryan on Skype, we could hear Banjo-Kazooie in the background, and it was perfect. It was right on brand for our friend Ryan, and also hilarious because Banjo's music is so fantastic.
It's great.
I can't even begin. Like unfortunately we can't spend too long, talking about all these games because these are bonus episodes and we're really just kind of doing a little bracket here for the fun of it.
We're going to have to talk about at least one of these more than once.
Yeah. I think what we're just going to have to do is we're going to have to do a Banjo-Kazooie episode at some point.
Yeah.
I personally did not realize just how deep and how celebrated, like there's so much more to these games, like the hidden stop and swap stuff that's in it. That's a whole other ball of wax, and the fact that people are still finding secrets to that game, like it's crazy. Now with that said, gun to my head, haha, I don't even know why I said haha, that's not funny at all. But gun to my head, I'd rather play Metal Gear. It's just kind of and it's tough. It's actually a tough choice because Banjo does that thing where it just instantly made me smile. And the smile never really left. It was a delight. And I was shocked at that. But
can I say something really quickly that I think is extremely unpopular of me to say?
Please do.
But playing Metal Gear Solid, I think made Snake less cool to me as a character. In my mind, I always thought of Snake as like this uber badass dude, and I was like one of the coolest characters of all time in video games, in any media, really, for me at least. And then I played it, and one of the first things he does is call, like, I wish I could remember the line, but it's when Mei Ling comes on the codec, and the first line he says is like, "I didn't expect you to be so cute." And I was like, oh god, no, please.
Are you kidding me? That's exactly what a smooth operator says.
Oh god.
Because if he was some nerdlinger, he'd be tripping all over himself and telling her, "Oh my god, you're so beautiful. Oh my goodness, the world revolves around you. You are my son." Instead, Snake is just like, "Yeah, you're cute."
I think it's the word cute that coming out of his mouth that makes me so uncomfortable. But also then stuff like when you first see Meryl and she starts running towards the elevator and the camera randomly like zooms in on her ass.
Okay, but here's the thing. And I said this on the Metal Gear episode that we did a while back. That is a 100% accurate depiction of every heterosexual male.
Yeah.
Okay, so we agree.
I don't disagree with you on that point. I'm just like playing it back. It's just like, oh man, like this is really 1998 right here.
Okay, but let's not kid ourselves. In Banjo-Kazooie, Gruntilda is body shamed for the entire game, and bases all of her own value on stealing the looks of another girl so that she can become hotter. What is that telling you, Arnie?
All I know is that she speaks in rhyme, and it's adorable. So I'm going to ignore your question. You're trying to hoist me with my own petard over here.
Anyhow, head to head, we'll give it to Banjo.
Yes.
Because Ozzy's not here. If Ozzy was here, he would... If Ozzy was here, he'd be losing his mind right now.
I'm just assuming he'd be yelling at me the entire show.
What's wrong with you, Arnie?
Just scolding me constantly.
All right. So as far as our criteria goes, 3 out of 5 here for Metal Gear Solid. Now, again, this isn't ironclad. We can pick Banjo. However,
it's just an excuse to talk about the games.
It is 100%. Yeah, like we're again, like I don't think Ryan needs an excuse to talk about Banjo. I think he's happy to do it. Am I right?
I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about Metal Gear for as long as anyone is happy to listen to me. And Arnie, you're just happy to talk about everything, right?
I love everything. This is why this is so hard, Paul. Somebody's gonna be mad at me. Somebody's going to be mad at me no matter what I do. I don't like it. I'm very uncomfortable right now.
Oh, hey.
People are going to yell at me.
Well, yeah, I mean...
Specifically Ozzy, probably. Even if I pick Metal Gear Solid, he's still going to yell at me.
No, he'll pat you on the head. He'll find... What he'll do is he'll find something different to yell at you about.
It's the worst.
Hey, the poll you put up last night.
I did.
What are the results?
You know, it's funny. I thought it was going to be closer than it was, but Metal Gear handily won the poll. I think it was like 66% to 33% or something like that.
That's closer than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I thought it would be like 8-2 or something like that.
I thought it was going to be closer than that.
Wow, man. It's amazing how our perceptions are colored by, our own opinions, right? If I like Metal Gear, everybody must like it.
You know what the worst part of the poll is? Is that I see who everybody votes for, so I know exactly who's going to be upset with me, depending on who I pick. And I'm sort of weighing my options.
And a quick disclaimer, I did not vote. Ryan, did you vote?
I didn't see it, sorry. I would have voted for Banjo. Banjo all the way.
Sadly, the people have spoken, and the people say Metal Gear. And, I mean, I think it should be Metal Gear, obviously. Ryan, I know you think it should be Banjo. So,
of course.
I think for my own amusement, I'm gonna turn the hot spotlight onto Arnie.
Oh, God. I wonder if I'm quiet, if you'll just go away.
It would make for a very interesting podcast.
God.
The sudden quiet.
I want to like... Can I flip a coin?
No.
Oh.
Just remember that you'll be making more people angry as per your poll.
I know, I'm making mortal enemies of everyone. Like my co-hosts, 66% of people. I'm checking my phone because I think Paul sent me a message.
The message is hurry up, Arnie.
Oh God. Okay, let's go with the one that I personally feel like I think should move on. I'm gonna pick Metal Gear Solid.
You know you have to.
I just feel like if we're gonna talk about the best game of 1998, it seems unfair to cut Metal Gear Solid off this early. I love Banjo. I prefer Banjo to Metal Gear Solid, but I think that when you look at it in the overall sense of everything that is a game, Metal Gear Solid is the pick. That being said, I feel so bad now because it's 1998 and we don't have any other 3D platformers.
You know, it's kind of a victim. Banjo's kind of a victim of our random seeding. You know what I mean? Because it should be higher. Like, you know, there are other games in our bracket of 16 where it's like, oh, well, we got to include something because it's 16. In retrospect,
I already regret my decision. I want to.
What's that?
I already regret my pick.
But yeah, it's just random seeding, right? Like that's unfortunately the issue, but it is what it is. Ryan, thanks again so much for joining us here.
Oh, thank you very much.
And thanks everyone.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm sorry I made you sit through that.
It's been great.
And thanks again everyone for listening again. If you want to find Ryan on Instagram and see some of his art and some of his reviews, he's at VideoGameBear. If you're looking for us, you can contact us at Region Free Gamers Podcast on Instagram.
Please don't contact me after this episode.
Please contact Arnie. Let him know what a good decision he's made. And if you want to contact us on Twitter, because of the character limit, we are at Region Free Gamer. And we just opened up our website, regionfreegamers.com. Ozzy's got some pretty strong writing there and links to all of our episodes. And thanks, Arnie. for finally
I
making
hate
your
you
pick.
so much.
Thank you. And again, thanks everyone for listening.